Hello again. I'm going to be doing rounds 3 and 4 of part 3 of the Lily Pond Cal. So this one you were using fuchsia for round 3 and back to daffodil for round 4 if you're following the colours from the original pattern. So we'll just crack straight on. I feel like I should have a little jingle at the beginning of each video. Might have to look into that. Anyway, we digress. So what we're going to do now with the fuchsia, if you're using that colour, is join the yarn in any stitch space between the posts of any two trebles made. Right, so what that basically means in English is that where you have your trebles, rather than working into the top of the stitch like you usually would, she wants you to work in between the trebles. And again, I appreciate that this is white on the back of white and it's not very helpful at this moment in time, but we're working into the space. So we're not working into the top of the stitch, we're working into the space between the stitches here for this particular part. Okay, so we will pull up our yarn and we're chaining one to secure, but this does not count as a stitch, and we're going to put a double crochet or single crochet US terminology into the same space. So as you can see, when you're working with the space, it creates like a spoke like look to the piece, which is just a little bit different. So we've done that. So now what we need to do is chain one and then put a double crochet into the next space between. So this is, we're chaining one and working a double crochet into each space between the trebles. So we're not working in the top of the stitch, we're working in between the posts of the stitch. Okay, so chain one, insert, pull up, double crochet, chain one, and we're just going to do this all the way around like so. Oh, I missed a chain out. Chain one, then double, chain one, double, chain one, double. We're just doing that all the way around. Chain one, chain one, double. Oh, wait a minute. Chain one, double. Now on this round, I'm going to finish the same, but we want our join to count as the last chain one. So I'm not actually going to do the last chain one with my hook. I'm going to create it as a join, which you shouldn't really be able to see. So, and because this is a nice bright colour, hopefully you can see the join a bit better this time around. So I'm just going to cut my yarn and pull that end right through. And now I'm going to thread onto the needle. So what we want to do to join this is to identify the top of the first double. So the chain is down here. We're not using the chain one that we used to attach the yarn. We're using the top of the double, which this is the post here. This little V is the post of the stitch, and the top of the chain is just off to the right of that post. When we come to do the petals in the trebles, it's easier for us to identify that for you. But what I'm doing is just inserting the needle through both sides of that top of that stitch, the V at the top, and pulling that yarn through. But I'm only pulling enough through so it matches the stitches around about. And then we insert the needle down the V and towards the back of the work of the very last double crochet that we did. So we go down, and again just pull so it matches the stitches on either side. And as I said earlier, when we create a chain with our hooks, it has 3 component parts. It has the 2 strands on the top, and it has the bump underneath. So now I'm just going to create the bump underneath by just feeding the needle up through the center of the next stitch along, like so. And again, just pull enough to complete the stitch. You don't want it tight. You want it to blend in with the stitches on either side. And then, as I have with all of the rows, I'm going to weave the rest of this end in. And so we go down and up the back loops of the top of each stitch. And as I've said in previous videos, go a fair bit around to make sure you're going to crochet over the top of it to get that locked in nice and tight. And always end on a downstroke at the back of your piece of work. And then we're going to deal with the tail that we had from the original join. And again, thread the needle and just feed it up that stitch so it's almost invisible. And then this is the wrong side of the work facing, so it's still the back loop really if it was facing the correct way, but we're just going up and down there again a little good way along to ensure that way when we come to do the next round we are definitely securing that in nice and tight and it isn't going to come out. So do 2 more, and again end on a downstroke so the tail is at the back of your piece of work. So that is round 3, and if you finish it in this particular way you should not be able to see where you joined, and the only telltale sign is where your weaves are around the edge. Okay, so the next colour we're using, if you again sticking to the pattern, is Daffodil, and it wants us to join into any chain space. So a chain space is where we have a chain and it creates a space underneath, and that's where it wants us to join our yarn in this particular case. And so just insert your hook into the chain space and get your colour, which just nearly rolled off the table. Right. And join it in, and again we are using 1 chain to join that in, and then it wants us to do a double crochet in the same space, so the chain again is not being counted as a stitch in this instance. Then it wants us to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and skip a double crochet, which is that V there, a chain, which is there, and another double crochet, which is the next V, and then it wants us to put a double crochet into the next chain space. And if we look, what basically we're missing two full stitches and working into the following chain space. So and then it's asking us to repeat that action, so we're doing this all the way around. Chain 3, miss a double, a chain space and a double, insert into the next chain space. 1, 2, 3, 1, and you just continue around. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 into the space. Oh, split my yarn. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now then, we're ending with 3 chains, but again, as I've already said before, I like to finish my work off so it's as neat as possibly can be. So I'm going to do 2 chains on my hook, but then I'm not going to do any more, because as we did with the previous row with the chain, I'm going to make the chain with the join. So I'm going to cut my yarn and pull that through, but do not pull tight. We're not finishing off. We don't want to change the size or shape of that last chain that we made. Okay, and then we're just going to thread our needle, and again, you're not including the first chain that we made to join the yarn. We want the top of the double, and again, there's the V underneath next to the chain, and the top of that is just off to the right. So again, the needle goes through both strands of yarn at the top there, and again, just pull enough for it to match the stitches on either side. So we've gone right through the back, and now we need to double back on ourselves and go down that second chain that we made with the needle pointing out towards the back of our piece of work, and that creates the V at the top, and then we've just got the bump underneath to complete. So again, just feed it up through the next stitch along, and just tug it enough so it looks nice and neat, and just weave your end in as we have before in the past. So up and down across the chains and across the tops of the double crochets that we've done, like so. And again, always finish with a downstroke and the tail coming out the back of your work, and then just deal with the joining tail from the very beginning. And so we just feed it up to the top and weave the opposite direction to the weave on the other side. I'm gonna lose it. And down again, keeping your tails at the back. So there we are. We've now got rounds 1 to 4, and I'll be doing rounds 5 and 6 in the next video, and we'll have a nice complete flower. So I shall see you soon. Happy hooking, bye.